Welcome to our first episode of Drop by Drop, where we count up how many times an actor has died in a horror, thriller, or horror-esque movie or TV show. We will be also ranking the deaths based on how bloody the death is, how original the death is, and how cruel the death is. We're starting things off with an actor who's quite popular these days after co-starring in one of horror's biggest blockbuster hits of 2025 so far, Final Destination Bloodlines. Of course, we're talking about Eric Campbell himself, Richard Harmon. Richard is not new to the screen, nor is he new to dying. We will count up just how many times he has died in his career so far. Now, before we begin, let's go through our rankings. At the bottom, we have Janet's faint of boredom. This is used for deaths that are unseen or just overall boring deaths. Next, we have Michael's head tilt. These are for deaths that make us tilt our head and go, yeah, it's alright. In the middle, we have Ghostface's clean knife. These are deaths that maybe aren't quite bloody, but are pretty decent enough. Then we have Jigsaw's There Will Be Blood. These deaths are bloody, they're fun, they're a good time. And at the top, we have Freddy's Blood Volcano. These are the best deaths. These are my favorite deaths, and I can't wait to show them. Now let's begin our drop by drop of Richard Harmon. Our first movie in the tier of Janet's faint of boredom is Dear Mr. Gacy. A movie based on a true story of a college student who, for a term paper, writes to serial killer John Wayne Gacy while in prison. He's not mentally or emotionally prepared for what's to come. At the end of the film, we find out that he went on to become a criminal defense attorney until sadly taking his own life in 2006. Richard Harmon plays Victim and is only seen through a flashback photo. I would like to think there were actual scenes filmed that just didn't make the final cut of the movie, because the other flashback photo Victim shown has a flashback scene later in the movie. So we never see his actual death, but it is mentioned in the beginning that the bodies had ropes around their necks, which means we can only assume he was strangled by Gacy after who knows what other tortures. Next, we have Cruel and Unusual. A man who killed his wife wakes up in what we assume is a purgatory institute where everyone there has to relive their crime over and over again. In this film, Richard plays William, a sharp-dressed man who murdered his parents. Again, we don't see how William dies. He's already dead when the movie begins. Well, we assume he's dead because if he's in the institute, he must be in fact dead and must relive killing his parents every single day. When we see the aftermath of William killing his parents, he seems to have remorse and is upset with what he's done. I would have loved for the movie to have dug deeper into his character, as well as some of the other minor characters we meet. But for now, we have no idea how William passed. Our next movie is The Return. A college student returns to his childhood home after his father passes and soon comes face to face with the horrors that haunt the dark halls. Here we have Richard playing the lead character, Roger, who dies but doesn't die per se. The house is haunted by a shadowy smoke creature. We find out it's Roger's mom. In the past, his mom built a time machine, but because of an error in the equation, she is torn between the past and present time. In order to fix things, Roger rebuilds the machine and goes back in time before his mother's failed experiment. Here, we see it was because of a younger Roger that all the bad stuff happens because he changes the equation on the board after being upset with his mother. So, when adult Roger fixes the board, ultimately fixing the future, he finds himself in Avengers Endgame and gets dusted after Thanos snaps his fingers. Now, technically, young Roger would still be alive after the equation is fixed and will grow up to be adult Roger once more, but the version of Roger we met is gone forever. Richard Harmon won Best Actor at the 2020 New York City Horror Film Festival for his role in The Return. Next, we have Intruders, a TV series about people that find immortality by taking over other people's bodies. I almost didn't include this one as the show itself is not quite horror, but there are little specks of it. In Season 1, Episode 8, Richard plays Bix, back in 1931, who is the love of one of the main characters. He's a great jazz musician, but seems to have an alcohol addiction and is seen drinking quite heavily. It's his addiction that ends up taking his life, although it's never fully said, but honestly it seems like he's going through severe withdrawals and his body can't handle it and shuts down. Last in the Janet's Faint of Boredom ranking is The Hollow. 3 sisters go to live with their aunt in a small island town, but there's something sinister that is killing the residents one by one. The urban legend states that the town burned 6 girls at the stake for witchcraft. The witches vow to return once every 100 years to seek revenge on anyone that stays on the island. Richard plays Seth, and my biggest issue with this movie is that I was expecting Seth to be a bigger part of the movie based on how the film introduces the character. When we first meet Seth, he pulls up behind the sisters' car, tells one of them to stay clear of the island because of what happened there, and when asked why he's going to the island, he says he has his reasons. Then we see Seth back in his car, pull out a gun, and make sure it's loaded. To me, all of this signifies that he knows what's going on in that island and he's returning because he knows it's about to go down again and that he wants to seek revenge or end what's happening. However, later on, we find out that Seth is just a content creator that heard about the haunted island, went to check it out, and the gun is just in case there are some crazy people in town. After giving the audience all the exposition we need, he meets his death at the hands of the fire tree creature, but again, we do not see the death. I rank this higher than some of the other unseen deaths because of the drag away. I absolutely love the drag into the freezer, and since we do see how the creature kills other people, we know his fate is being burned from the inside. To start off our Michael's Head tilt, we have Haunting Hour, a new generation's Goosebumps that was also created by R.L. Stine. Richard was in 2 episodes of the series, but we are first going to talk about Season 1, Episode 5, Nightmare Inn. The episode is about a young girl who, along with her mom, moves into an abandoned hotel after losing her father. It's here she meets Caleb, played by Richard Harmon, a charming young man that offers to show her around. Caleb seems nice and friendly during the day, and you can tell the young girl likes him. But at night, well, he turns into an absolute beast. Literally. Before turning into a werewolf from the full moon, he tells her that maybe she doesn't have to leave. I feel like he wanted to keep her and change her into a werewolf to be together, but it's never fully said. As he goes to attack her, we find another character turn into a werewolf and they start to fight over her. Then a third werewolf shows up and attacks both of them, and after a brief fight with Caleb, he is killed, which we see through the cracks of a wooden door. You know, sometimes shows and movies will get other actors to play the creature parts, and I try to find out if that is Richard Harmon as Werewolf Caleb, and since there's no other actors listed, I'm guessing it is. Next, we have Puppet Killer, a group of teenagers that head off to a cabin in the woods during Christmas break, and a childhood toy starts to take them out one by one. Just to clarify, these are teenagers, these 2 are brothers, and this is a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah, keep it down! I'm a child, for God's sake!
One of my favorite things about the movie is the parody of casting older actors to play high school students, not to mention all the other little Easter eggs to other horror movies. Richard plays Rick, a young teen who doesn't want to be there, but went because his mom made his brother take him along. He smokes a lot of weed and listens to music for the most part. There are actually 2 deaths in this movie for Rick, but for this ranking, we're only going to talk about the dream sequence death. It's a fake death, but we're still counting it. The main character dreams about all his friends being murdered by his childhood puppet. When he goes downstairs, he sees them all dead in the living room. Rick is dead from what appears to be multiple stab wounds or being sliced and diced. It's hard to tell. His shirt is ripped like it's been cut open, and there's just a lot of blood. Now we have Secret Circle, a TV series about a teen girl who moves to a new town and discovers not only is she a witch, but so are some of the other girls in town. Richard appears in 2 episodes as Ian, a witch hunter brought in to, hunt some witches. The episode we want, though, is Season 1, Episode 20, where Ian meets his demise. Ian was brought to town in order to help capture the witches and take them to a place where they'd be killed. However, one of the witches uses her magic to kill one of the other hunters, and Ian is able to flee and save himself. Later, Ian meets with the witches in the woods, and the main one is quite angry that he helped to capture them to be killed, so she starts to make him choke on his own blood. After a brief conversation, we find out that there's a witch trader, and Ian and a few of the other hunters go to find and capture him at an abandoned amusement park. Sadly, Ian and the others don't make it out alive, and he's found with his throat slashed near one of the rides. Next in Michael's head tilt ranking, we have Trick or Treat, an anthology film about Halloween where all the stories weave into each other in some form. Of course, this is Richard Harmon's first big screen film, and it's also his very first death. This is actually one of the more sadder deaths in my opinion. One Halloween, a group of children who are described as different, troubled, and disturbed are being driven home on their school bus. The parents, tired of taking care of their children, pay the driver to get rid of them by driving the bus into the quarry. While the driver is checking on the restraints, Vampire Kid, played by Richard, gets free and while trying to drive home, accidentally drives straight into the quarry. What makes this so sad, besides it being kids and that the parents paid to have them murdered, is the fact he knows they're going the wrong way as soon as the driver takes a different turn, and how he keeps saying he just wants to go home. But don't worry, Vampire Kid and the others return as zombies to seek revenge on the bus driver. Next we have Woodland, a psychological thriller about Jake, a photographer that tries to escape his past by doing drugs and by going to an island to be a watchman and assist the handyman Sparky with work around the lodge. In this movie, Richard Harmon plays Jake. He lost his girlfriend in a car accident and has become depressed. He huffs chemicals and begins to have hallucinations while on the island. While also on the island, we are shown that Jake always wears a dark green raincoat and Sparky wears a yellow one. Jake also takes photos of the absolutely beautiful setting, but when he develops the photos, the images show something different. In a selfie photo taken in front of a mirror, a crack appears. In another photo he took of a door, scratches appear that weren't there. Later, Jake is chased by a bear creature, and when he leaves the safety of the building, the door now has the scratches he had seen in the photo earlier. His images appear to be pictures of the future, including one that shows Sparky wearing his yellow raincoat dead against a tree. A big storm is coming to the island. The 2 men take shelter in the cellar, and Jake decides to try and warn Sparky about the future, showing him the photos. But Sparky thinks Jake's the one that's going to harm him, so he gets scared and runs away during a blackout, grabbing the dark green raincoat. Jake chases after him, grabbing the yellow raincoat, but the storm makes it hard to see anything. The bear creature returns and goes after Jake, and as Jake runs away, he trips and crawls over to a tree. He realized that now he is sitting against the tree, wearing the yellow raincoat instead of Sparky. He provokes the creature to come after him, accepting his fate. In the morning, the storm is past and Sparky finds the body of Jake still against the tree. This death, in my opinion, is left open for discussion, which is why it's ranked a little higher than others because it's not so simple. When we see Jake dead against the tree, it doesn't show him torn apart from a bear. There's no blood or marks on his face besides the ones previously there. Then when Sparky goes through Jake's photos, we see that maybe Jake was hallucinating all of it because we are shown that there never was a mirror crack in Jake's selfie photo. So was it all in Jake's head? Did Jake really die from a bear? Or an overdose from the chemicals? Or perhaps there really is something more sinister on that island? Richard Harmon won the 2018 Whistler Film Festival Star to Watch Award for Woodland. Last in the Michael's Head Tilt ranking is Haunting Hour again. But now we're looking at Season 2, Episode 11, Scarecrow. In this episode, Richard plays Bobby, a young man who lives with his sister and parents on a farm. Bobby and his sister go into town and they meet a stranger who talks about the end of the world and how wonderful the quiet would be. The stranger visits with Bobby's sister, gifting her a scarecrow for her crops, and she accepts. That night, Bobby's parents are missing, his dog is missing, and his sister and him notice how there's no bug sounds outside. The next day, Bobby gets a call from a girl in town and he drives to meet her, but when he arrives, the town is completely empty and silent. Bobby returns home to now find his sister is gone as well. Now, apparently there are two endings to this episode. When it first aired, the episode ends with Bobby burning the scarecrow and leaving him left alone as the last person in the world. However, the second ending is the one that we're counting, which has the stranger revealing he is the scarecrow and has gotten rid of every living creature in the world. And he wants someone to witness how perfect the quiet is. And Bobby is turned into a scarecrow. The final scene showing the stranger scarecrow and the Bobby scarecrow in the field together. Now, both endings are absolutely bleak and upsetting. Imagine being the last person alive, no living creature, just absolute silence. And if you're wondering why the scarecrow death is ranked higher than some of the others, imagine finding out everyone you loved and knew is gone, and then you're turned into a scarecrow. Plus, I can't help but imagine the imagery of scary stories to tell in the dark when that character gets turned into a scarecrow, and how disturbing it is. Our first movie in Ghostface's Clean Knife ranking is Lowlifes, a Tubi original film about a road-tripping family that finds themselves staying the night at a country homestead. I watched this movie not knowing anything, and I have to say the twist was done very well. We are first led to believe the country folk are your typical hillbilly killers, but the movie flips the stereotype right on its head. Richard plays Vern, just a good old boy who was raised right. We meet him in the beginning when he meets the main family who are from California. He's trying to find his brother-in-law who has gone missing. He makes the family feel a little uneasy, eating a few grasshoppers before accepting a candy bar from the son. I want to know if those were real grasshoppers, because you can actually eat them, and they look absolutely real. I love it. And just how many times did Richard have to eat the candy bar? Because it changes throughout the scene. He takes it completely out of the wrapper at first and eats a good chunk of the bar. Then he goes to take another bite with the wrapper still on, and I swear he would have gotten a bite of the wrapper before saving the rest for later. Vern and his friend Billy leave, but their truck ends up breaking down, and soon the family pulls up in their RV, and Vern is able to use his charm and get the family to take Billy to his home to get his dad's car to pick Vern up. As Vern waits to be picked up, it starts to get dark and he becomes ill, throwing up. He tries to call Billy, but he doesn't answer. That's because the family are actually cannibals and have murdered Billy in the RV on the way to Billy's home, and the candy bar has something in it to make whoever eats it very sick. The family arrives to the house and decides to kill Billy's family and be set for food for a while and could head back home sooner than expected. Billy's family is tied up and being tormented when Vern comes in shotgun blasting to save the day. For me, when he busts through the door, I was so happy to see he was going to be the hero. He shoots the dad, fights with him, chokes him, shoves his finger through his eye socket, and puts up a good fight, but ultimately gets a knife through the head. The absolute sadness I felt when this happened. I wanted him to survive so badly. But clearly, if Richard Harmon's characters were survivors, we wouldn't have this death count. Next, we have Evangeline. A college student is left for dead in the woods, and a demon empowers her to help seek revenge on the 3 men that harmed her. Richard plays Michael, the guy that gets away with everything because of who he is and who his father is. We first meet Michael at a party where he absolutely screams the biggest villain vibes. He's even wearing the typical black turtleneck. It's Christmas break and most of the college students have gone home for the holiday. Michael meets up with Evangeline while she's playing pool by herself. He ruins her game but wants to make it up to her. He takes her to his dad's old hunting lodge, which the frat now uses, but there's no electricity. Michael offers her a drink and he begins to talk about how people are idiots and how she wasn't smart in coming with him when no one knows that she's there. She begins to pass out as we find out he drugged her drink, and when she wakes up, she's in the woods with Michael and his 2 buddies. He tells her she gets a head start before they go after her, but eventually Michael captures her and the 3 take turns beating her. Michael punches her a couple more times before wrapping his hands around her throat. Believing she is dead, they leave her in the woods to rot. A man who lives in a tent in the woods finds her and helps her recover as her mind and soul are trapped in a room with an evil entity. Her revenge using the demon's powers, first killing Michael's 2 buddies. After she kills one of the friends, Michael is seen torturing a street bum to see if he's seen Evangeline around. Eventually, she finally goes after Michael at the hunting lodge, but he's ready for her, and as she enters, he shoots her twice. As he reminds her that God doesn't care what he does, he reveals that he murdered her friend from the woods that helped save her and brought her a piece of his skin. Michael is just absolute pure evil, and I'm here for it. But how do you fight evil? Well, with something even more evil and sinister. Evangeline lets the demon take over again and brings Michael into the hell she's been trapped in. Michael gets a smack to the head with a hammer before getting it plunged into his skull, a similar death to Vern's in Low Lifes. Next on the ranking of Ghostface's clean knife, we have Scarecrow, a teacher, a group of high school students in detention, and a few other people go to a farm to help clean up the area for the farm to be sold. There's an urban legend about the evil Scarecrow and how it killed over 30 people, but the legend turns out to be true and it starts to take each of them out one by one. One of the high school students is Tyler, played by Richard Harmon, who is barely in the movie and is one of the first to disappear. We see him on the bus with his girlfriend. He recites the Scarecrow legend poem.
Never sleeps, it never dies, it can't be stopped, hear their cries.
The Scarecrow lives to kill us all.
Keep it buried in the fog.
And then jump scares one of his other classmates with the Halloween mask that he found. All of them head off into the cornfield, and that's when he disappears. His body is later found by the remaining members of the group, strung up on a beam in the barn. The reason I rank this death pretty decently is because of the wonderful makeup. It looks gruesome. Based on how he looks, it seems the Scarecrow tore him apart, just mutilated him. But then the Scarecrow strung him up for everyone to see? I was a little confused on that. I'm just surprised the evil entity Scarecrow took the time to tie him up in just the right position for the group to look up and see him. Last in the Ghostface's clean knife ranking is Margot, a group of 6 friends that stay at a smart house ran by an AI named Margot. For spring break, which sounds like a dream, having an artificial intelligence wait on you hand and foot, but it turns into a nightmare real fast. This is another one that has multiple deaths for Richard as his character Clay. We will discuss the movie more in depth when we go over the other death in the movie. For now, we're going to discuss the climax and ending of the movie because that's where our first ranked death occurs. The one we're talking about for the ranking is Clay's clone's death. Yes, there are clones of the characters. Out comes the clones of the 3 other deceased friends, which includes Clay, who really was in love with the house and thought they had a connection. They end up coming together to take out Margot, but during the beginning of the fight, Margot kicks their butts. She slams Clay up to the ceiling, then grabs him and bashes his head into a busted piece of statue, ending that clone's life. There's just something about the ceiling slam that makes me laugh though, and I could watch it repeatedly. And I do love at the end when another clone of Clay comes out, the pure joy that Clay's clone has when he rips off Margot's leg brings an absolute smile to my own face. And the Jigsaw's There Will Be Blood ranking is from Puppet Killer, revisited for the second Rick death thanks to the pink murderous puppet. Earlier we talked about the dream sequence death of Rick, which ranked in the Michael's head tilt because 1, it wasn't a real death, and 2, wasn't very gory. The friends are having a fun time getting ready for Christmas at the cabin. A couple of them are enjoying the hot tub, and then Rick is alone listening to his music, not caring about any of it. Rick wanders the area and goes into the building with the hot tub in it. He sees the puppet move to look at him and gets freaked out. He gets in an argument with his brother as he wants to leave and nobody believes his story about the puppet. Rick ends up storming off into the woods after one of the best back and forth. In the woods, Rick starts to smoke weed again and drops the roach after burning himself. He bends down to pick it up, and when he stands up again, there's an arrow in the tree. Rick spots the puppet with a bow and arrow and begins to run away, but the puppet gives chase, and damn, that little pink bastard is quick and has amazing aim. After giving a nice little shout out to Friday the 13th, the puppet shoots an arrow right through Rick's eye. His brother finds him later in the woods, and there's a sad moment when he realizes his little brother is dead. And to make the death even better, when the puppet uses his insane man strength to throw Rick through the door, we see that the arrow has been removed and his eye is now dangling from his socket, and it is so awesome. Richard Harmon and all of the cast members won the 2019 Anaheim International Film Festival for Best Ensemble Cast for Puppet Killer. Next, we have Van Helsing, a TV series about Vanessa Helsing, a relative of Van Helsing, that is resurrected to find out the world has been taken over by vampires. Richard is in 3 episodes in the 4th season, episode 3, 5, and 6. We meet Max driving in style. His lifestyle is chaotic, filled with the best liquor, cigars, drugs, and fancy house. Only the best, that's his motto. Max is the warden of a prison in this apocalyptic world, who loves a good mystery and the sound of ribs cracking.
And it's like bubble wrap to me. You hear that?
After having a man and woman try to break into the prison, Max beats and tortures the man trying to gain information on why they were trying to break in. The woman lies her way to being valuable until she finally shoots Max in the head and his office is blown up with his body inside. You assume Max has to die quickly. Oh, wait, nope, there he is. He's not dead. In a big reveal, we find out that Max is immortal. He takes the man's wife and son, who were already prisoners, and the reason why the man wanted into the prison. Max drives to the desert with the wife and child, and they stop at an abandoned house for the night. The child grabs Max's gun and shoots him in the neck. After calming down, he decides they are leaving the house. Max takes the wife and child to a blood farm, where he gives her to the butcher for the best fatty blood that he has, and he continues to move forward with the kid. Once at the border, where Max plans to give not only the fatty blood, but offer the child as well for safe passage over the hills, the child stabs Max in the leg just as his mother and father arrive to save him. Max is then shot in the leg by someone posed as one of the vamp guards. Max reveals his vampire history and that he's been everything you could be and that he may as well try dead. Max is brutally decapitated after many strikes from the knife. Even though he was only in 3 episodes, Richard won the 2020 Leo Award for Best Guest Performance by a Male in a Dramatic Series, and after watching his episodes, I would say it's very much deserved. Last in the Jigsaw's There Will Be Blood ranking is Reese, also known as Reese Kingdom Falling. I wasn't sure about including this one either, as it's not quite horror, more sci-fi than anything. However, the character that Richard Harmon plays, Prototype, comes straight from a horror movie, so we're including it. Prototype is one of the more sadder characters. He's a young man that was tortured, his organs taken out and replaced with gears. his voice box removed, becoming more machine than human. He breaks free and kills the doctors that changed him. The prototype is then used as an assassin to kill Reese. It's absolutely horrible to think about the pain and suffering he went through. The prototype finds Reese in an abandoned small town where they begin to fight. She tries to speak to his human side, calling him by his actual name and saying how she is not the enemy, but it doesn't work. He has her on the ground when she hits him with a rock, breaking his mask, and eventually she sets him free with 2 swift stabs. So even though the death itself was quick and a mercy kill, this death is ranked this high because of what he had to go through. Also, I just think the sound Richard uses for the prototype is genius, since the character is unable to speak. And I did see an interview where he said he used inspiration from 30 Days of Night and the sound the vampires used to communicate. First on our ranking for Freddy's Blood Volcano is Margot again. It's being revisited for Clay's second death on our death count. 5 friends who met freshman year but have now started to drift apart get together for spring break. Joining them is one of the friends' girlfriend. Everyone but one signed the user agreement before entering the house, and now Margot knows all of their likes and dislikes. The friends spend the day swimming and partying, and afterwards they play some truth or dare. After Clay dares 2 of the girls to kiss, Margot shows her capabilities of making clones of them, having Clay and one of the other guy friends kiss. So after the night of drinking, truth or dare, making out clones, and of course smoking some weed, Clay wakes up and is happy to see his favorite breakfast, sloppy browns. After breakfast, everyone goes to do their own thing. Clay has a deep talk with Margot before, smoking more weed. However, Margot has turned the gas on, and with a click of the lighter, poof. Clay doesn't die from the little explosion though, so she offers him some sparkling water, which is actually acid. While washing out his bong, he drops it into the sink and reaches in to get it. You know what's going to happen. We've all been scared to reach into the garbage disposal in fear of getting our hand all chopped up. Not only does he get his arm chopped up from the garbage disposal, but he starts to drink the acid water right before Margot turns on the garbage disposal. So when his friends find him, his arm is shredded up and he's coughing up blood. He dies in his friend's arms, still being Clay, with a smile and with a one final Shaka sign. Here it is, the final death of Richard Harmon. I bet you all could have guessed that this would be our number 1 pick, but before we get to it, let's do a recap of our previous rankings. For our number 1 death, we have Final Destination Bloodlines, which is not only my favorite Richard Harmon death, but my favorite Final Destination death overall. Final Destination Bloodlines, number 6 in the series, is about a family trying to survive when death starts coming for them. Eric gives off a hard shell, but he's a softie on the inside, especially for his family. He first meets what death can do at a tattoo shop he works at, where a chain gets caught in his septum piercing and he finds himself dangling over fire, but luckily he wore his leather jacket and only got branded. Eric nearly gets hit by a passing truck, but death is still only messing with him. Or
Maybe I'm invincible.
but why hasn't he died yet? We find out that he's not actually a part of the Campbell bloodline. No, he's really a Fenberry.
Jared Fenbury?
Yes, Jerry Fenberry. Even though Eric is not a Campbell, he can't let his brother die, and they go to find a solution. It's at the hospital we say goodbye to not only Bloodworth, a Final Destination icon, but also horror icon Tony Todd. With the advice from Bloodworth, Eric and Bobby go to save the family by killing Bobby and bringing him back. But they're messing with Death's plan, and they were warned that if you fuck with Death, things can get messy, and messy do they get. In an MRI room, the magnetic charge starts to rise to insane power, causing Eric's earrings, septum piercing, and finally his nipple piercings all ripped from his body. Once it gets to the highest level, we find out Eric has one more piercing hidden. But before that can be ripped out, the wheelchair pushes him into the MRI machine. His body begins to fold in half as the metal bars from the chair start to push into his back and out through his chest, recreating the Final Destination 5 poster. This has to be one of the most agonizing deaths, as it is so slow and painful in every shape and form. Now we are giving away the Carrie White Prom Queen Award. This goes to the fan favorite, most voted for death. And out of all the Richard Harmon deaths, you guys voted for Final Destination Bloodline, the MRI death. So congratulations to Final Destination, Eric Campbell's MRI death scene. Not only is it my favorite, it is yours, and has won the Carrie White Prom Queen Award. I am so excited to see what comes next from Richard Harmon. What do you think of these rankings? Which ones do you agree with? Which ones do you not agree with? And which celebrity would you like to see next in the drop by drop death count? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, share, follow.
5-star review, yeah? And, like and subscribe and all the things.
And keep your eyes open for more upcoming content, including a horror mystery box reveal, 30-second synopsis, maybe even a couple of horror movie reviews. Until then, stay spooky.